Welcome to the Calm Mom Podcast, the show for ambitious women ready to get off the hot mess express. I know you've got a lot going on. You work so hard, you're raising an incredible family, and sometimes it can be overwhelming. I'm your host, Michelle Grosser. I'm a certified master life coach, attorney, wife, and mom. And years ago, I was right where you are. I was running a busy law practice while raising a family, and I was on the fast track to burnout. I thought I just needed to be more organized or have better routines, but it was learning how to heal and regulate my nervous system that expanded my capacity to gracefully hold more of this big, beautiful life. You too are worthy of an extraordinary life in and beyond motherhood. Learning to be a calm, anchoring presence in your home and at work is going to be your superpower. If you're here to do the inner work that brings a sense of calm amidst the chaos, I'm here to join you on that journey. Each time you press play, your growth continues. So let's get at it. It's the Calm Mom Podcast, and I'm Michelle Grosser. Thanks for being with me today. We're going to talk about emotions today. I think it's something actually I love teaching about. It's something I love talking about. I think it's one of my favorite weeks inside of our group program because it's something that most of us just aren't taught. We just don't grow up learning healthy emotional hygiene, healthy emotional expression. And I think we severely underestimate the impact that it has on our energy, our mood, our nervous system, our sleep, our relationships, all these different things. The way in which we handle our emotions, manage our emotions, are comfortable with our emotions, especially the ones that can be uncomfortable, is really, really just so important to our overall health. So what I want to go through today is 3 different signs that you might be numbing or suppressing or dampening or whatever it is, your emotions, particularly those uncomfortable ones, right? So let's take a look at it. Let's take a look at how it plays a role in our overall well-being. And then I want to give you guys some really practical things you can walk away with today. I mean, things move fast, right? I don't have to tell you, we're moms. A lot of us are working outside of the house, whether you're working outside or inside. I don't really care. Either way, it's a lot, right? And I think it can be easy or tempting to kind of put our emotions on the back burner. It's I don't have time for that. I don't have the space for that. I don't have the privacy for that to deal with what's coming up for me. But it really matters. So here's why it matters. Emotional hygiene is really about taking care of our energetic body, right? Our emotional body, the same way that we take care for our physical hygiene, right? We brush our teeth, we brush our hair, we shower, we take care of our bodies, and we have hygiene in that way. And the same should be true for our emotions. We are in and out beings. As human beings, we are in and out beings. That means that the things that come in must go out, right? The food that we eat, it comes in, it goes out. The things that we drink, it comes in, it goes out. The air that we breathe, it comes in, it goes out. The same is true for our emotions. There is an internal impact on the things that happen around us that causes a chemical reaction in our body that then needs to be released. It has to come in, or it's going to come in, and then it's got to go out. And if it doesn't, that takes up so much space, you guys, that will shrink your capacity. It will shrink your window of tolerance. It will make you edgy and irritable and all these other things that you might not even tie back to the fact that you are a pro at suppressing and repressing and ignoring your emotions. So when I talk about emotional hygiene, I'm talking about processing our feelings in a healthy way. Why is this important? Regularly expressing our feelings, regularly honoring our emotions prevents them from building up inside of us, right? That doesn't just lead to resentment. We can probably all relate to that in some way or another, right? Something that's been annoying to us or frustrating to us or felt really unfair that's gotten us really upset. But then we don't say anything about it, or we don't want to rock the boat, or whatever it is. And what happens? It kind of builds up, and it's this pressure cooker, and then it turns into resentment or bitterness or any of these other things that we don't want to embody, right? Not only that, there's a physical component here. It also leads to chronic stress on our body. It's a stressor. So emotional suppression is a stressor that causes stress on our body. It can cause anxiety. It can even cause burnout, you guys. And so many of us, we ignore or we suppress our emotions, and then we'll start to manifest these symptoms, these physical symptoms, or these mood swings, or like this kind of emotional numbness where we notice we don't really feel much of anything, right? Like I don't get really angry, but I also have a hard time accessing that like really big bubbly joy inside of me too, right? It's like both ends of the spectrum are muted. But when we can get intentional about how we manage and deal and handle our emotions and our emotional hygiene, we set ourselves up for greater resilience, mental clarity, energy, mental peace, all of these good things. So if you're listening to this, especially with the big emotions like anger and frustration and rage and disappointment, what I tend to see with the women that I work with is that most women tend to fall on two ends of the spectrum, especially if you haven't done a lot of this work yet. If you've already done a ton of work around your emotions and nervous system regulation and like healing a lot of trauma and all this different stuff, you might not fall into one of these two camps, but most of us do. And I certainly did before I started doing this work. So camp number one is you're like, I'm just like super chill. I'm not angry, right? I don't really get upset about stuff. Like I just handle it. And that was me for so long. I thought I was so stinking chill. And there's a part of my personality I think that is. But when I was talking about, I don't get upset, I don't yell, I don't scream, I don't get angry, I've never experienced rage, I'm like, the stoic, like that was a bunch of BS, honestly. Because what I didn't realize is I was actually just really, really good at repressing and suppressing those big emotions. I was completely disconnected from those emotions. I was completely disconnected from my body. So I was telling myself that I'm super chill, but meanwhile, my husband or the people close to me are doing things that are actually quite annoying or irritating or frustrating or upsetting to me. And I'm just stuffing it down and I'm just stuffing it down and I'm pretending it's good and I'm pretending it's cool and I'm pretending it doesn't bother me. And there's a price for that, right? There's a cost to that. And then on the other side of the spectrum is maybe with those big emotions, you're like, yeah, that like I'm not chill. Actually, I know that I'm quite volatile when it comes to my emotions, right? Maybe you get upset or you get triggered about something and like, man, you pop off so quick and you are a yeller or a screamer or you'll throw things or whatever it is. And that's scary too, right? Either ends of that spectrum are not healthy emotional expression and release. So we've got to find healthy tools for our emotions that fall somewhere in that middle range, right? That are healthy, that are loving, that don't harm ourselves, don't harm others. We don't say things that are hurtful to people. We have to learn healthy ways to deal with this. So when you think of your emotional hygiene as this essential practice for your mental health, your physical health, obviously your emotional health, just like you brush your teeth every day, we've got to attend to our emotions. It's something that keeps our whole system in balance. Before we go through these 3 signs, I want to touch for a second on why and how we commonly suppress emotions, because I think it can be subtle. And I think a lot of times we don't realize what we're doing. And then we're like, oh, that's why I'm doing that. That's what I'm doing, right? So many of us, well, let's just start here. I think a lot of times we suppress emotions or deny or bypass emotions because they're uncomfortable. It seems kind of obvious, but they're uncomfortable. Like who likes to cry or be angry or feel sadness or pain or disappointment or embarrassment or whatever it is? Like no one likes and enjoys sitting in those emotions. So it would make sense that it would be tempting for us to want to just avoid that altogether, right? So I think that's reason number 1. It's just not fun. Number 2 is that so many of us grew up in environments, our families of origin, where emotions were either undervalued or they were dismissed, or worse, they were made to be whatever label, your caregivers threw on them. Maybe you were being unreasonable. Maybe you were being annoying. Maybe you were being crazy or loud, or you're making a big deal out of nothing, or you were being dramatic, or, you were being weak, a crybaby, like whatever it is. So what happens is that if that happened, and it might even have been like unintentional by our caregivers, right? They might have just been really quick to like distract us out of painful emotions. If we were crying, if we were disappointed, if we were sad, if we were angry, they were really quick to try to make us happy. So we never really learned how to sit in those big, uncomfortable emotions. And then we grow up and now we're adults and we cope in the same way, right? We push them away, we hide them, we avoid them, we deny them. We don't know how to be with them because they're so uncomfortable. And for us high achieving women, especially moms, I kind of mentioned this at the beginning, but I think a lot of times we feel like we don't have the quote unquote time for emotions, right? Like that takes space, that takes energy. If I'm going to like cry about something or be angry about something, I need like 20 minutes to myself in my bedroom probably, right? Like I can't be interrupted for snacks or to find the show or because they're fighting over who gets to like, I don't know, whatever it is, right? It's like, it feels like we need space for that. And part of that is true. So what do, right? We just push through. We have other stuff we've got to attend to. People need us. And then we assume that being quote unquote strong, and I want you to hear me on this, we think that being strong means that we can just push past it and ignore it and minimize how we feel. But there's a price to that, right? There's a cost to it on the back end. So we'll often suppress our emotions. And this is kind of what I want to talk through today, but we'll distract ourselves, right? Scrolling social media, binging TV, whatever it is, eating. We'll minimize it. We'll say things like, man, you know, other people have it worse, or I know there's going to be good that's going to come out of this, or it's actually not that big of a deal when, you know, your body's like, yes, this is actually a really big deal. And then you're just kind of dismissing that. And then I think we also put pressure on ourselves to kind of want to, or encouraging ourselves to snap out of it, especially when we're feeling sad or frustrated or disappointed or angry. I think a lot of times that like little people pleasing part will pop up. And it's like, hey, this is going to be like, I don't want to make anyone else uncomfortable. I don't want to be in a bad mood. I'm just going to snap out of it. So I think a lot of these suppression techniques are actually coping mechanisms, right? That we've just learned over time. And maybe they do help in the short term. But let me tell you, you know, based on everything that I know, everything that I've studied, everything that I've experienced personally, and through all the women that I've coached, long-term emotional suppression will take a toll on your health and your well-being. So what can we do about it? Okay, let's talk about the impact of suppressed emotions on nervous system, and on our nervous system, energy, relationships, all that things, because suppressed emotions don't disappear, right? They get stored in our body and they show up in so many different ways: chronic tension, headaches, digestive issues, even other really serious physical symptoms over time, autoimmune conditions. It also will keep our nervous system dysregulated, because when we are suppressing really big emotions and we're not honoring what's going on in our body, that sends our nervous system into this state of heightened alertness, right? Our sympathetic nervous system is activated. And when our emotions aren't processed in a healthy way, our body's on guard. We're like anticipating that something bad's going to happen, and that creates chronic stress. And then the biggest one that I see is that suppressing emotions really drains your energy. Guys, if you have been feeling so tired lately, exhausted, you don't know why, right? Like, yeah, life is busy, you got a lot going on, but that's kind of always the thing. Or maybe it's like this wired but tired, and you're noticing you have a lot of anxiety, but you're so deeply exhausted. If there's nothing that you can like point to for that exhaustion, like if you seem to be sleeping okay, or, you know, whatever it is, man, get curious about how you're dealing with your emotions. Because when you ignore your emotions, your body actually uses a ton of energy to hold them in, right? Keep them suppressed. It's like, think of the amount of energy it takes to hold a super inflated beach ball underwater. It takes a lot of energy, right? You're holding it under, and then your arms start to get tired and they start to shake, and eventually that ball just like pops out of the water. Same is true with your emotions. It takes a ton of energy, you guys, to hold that in and suppress it and pretend it's not there and keep it at bay. And eventually that can contribute to burnout. All right, so let's go through these 3 signs that I put together. There's many, many more, but these are 3 that I frequently see when my clients are numbing or suppressing their emotions. These are like 3 little red flags. First, and a lot of us, I'm going to include myself in here, can probably relate to this one. The first sign that you are numbing or suppressing or avoiding your emotions is that you, my friend, and me, we scroll our phone anytime we're bored, anytime we're alone, anytime we need distraction, right? We sit down, we have 20 seconds to ourselves, and what do? We immediately, instinctively reach for our phone whenever we feel like that slightest twinge of boredom or sadness or discomfort. And we do that to avoid, right? That's an avoidance tactic. We do it as a technique to avoid feeling whatever is present for us. Because when we're alone with our emotions, especially if we're not familiar with that sort of practice and leaning into the discomfort and being with what's coming up with us and trusting that it's safe and okay, holy moly, does the phone just become an easy escape, right? Our nervous system is like, it's uncomfortable. Give me relief. And that phone scrolling, we get the dopamine hit, temporary sense of distraction. It's novel. It's just, gives us the illusion that we're feeling quote unquote better. So if that is you and you notice that tends to happen, wow, just let that be great awareness. Okay, there's something coming up. There's something going on here that I actually have to pay attention to. I have to sit with, I have to be with, I have to acknowledge, I have to experience and allow myself to feel it. And whatever comes up from it, right? If it's tears, if it's anger, if I want to just like hit something or throw something safely, obviously, then I'm going to honor that instead of just avoiding it and denying it and distracting myself from it. Sign number 2 that you're numbing and suppressing your emotions is, man, you are annoyed, frustrated, sad, whatever it is, and you just head straight for the pantry. Sugary food, salty food, like you're in the pantry, you're in the freezer, whatever it is, you like go to these foods when you're feeling upset. And, this makes a lot of sense, right? Those comfort foods when we're feeling sad or anxious, the stress eating, right? Those foods that are high in sugar and salt and unhealthy fats. Emotional eating, I see it a lot, and it's often a way to kind of stuff down those feelings, right? It's a temporary soothing mechanism for our nervous system. We're seeking pleasure, right? Short-term satisfaction, instead of having the courage or the awareness or making the time or whatever it is to sit down and process what's actually happening under the surface, right? Sugar, salt, man, immediate dopamine hit. Same thing with scrolling your phone, right? That's what our body is seeking. So it creates this like momentary sense of pleasure and escape from whatever discomfort is coming through with the emotions that are present. And then the third sign that you're numbing or suppressing your emotions, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, is that you tell yourself to snap out of it. So you're feeling sad, you're feeling angry, and you immediately dismiss yourself and you don't honor what's coming up and you don't honor the emotions and the expression. And you're just like, man, Michelle, like snap out of it. Like, don't be so sad about this. It's not that big of a deal, right? Don't be so mad about this. It was just a comment. It was just a whatever it was. Like, they didn't mean to offend you, whatever it was, right? That challenging emotion arises and we try to quote unquote snap out of it, or we push it aside or tell ourselves not to dwell on it. But here's what happens. Dismissing our feelings, dismissing our emotions tells our body that those emotions are, and it slaps a label on them, right? It judges them. They're unwelcome. They're unsafe. They're irrelevant. They're weak. They're dramatic. They're whatever. And that interrupts and it blocks the emotional processing cycle. So if the natural course of emotional release is that I feel this, instead of greeting it with judgment, I greet it with compassion. Let's say it's sadness, right? I'm feeling really sad. Oh man, I'm feeling that lump in my throat. Oh, I'm sensing tears coming through my eyes. Instead of judging myself for that, I'm going to greet it with compassion. It's okay. This is normal. This is a normal physiological response to something that happened around me. I'm going to allow myself to actually cry and feel sad. A couple of minutes, I feel it. It goes through that. I ride that emotional wave and it's done. It's released and I can move on. But when we start to notice the lump in our throat and the tears coming to our eyes, and we take that big swallow, right? And we push that lump in our throat back down and we, dry our eyes and pretend that nothing's wrong, it interrupts that biological cycle of emotional processing. And when we interrupt that cycle and we judge our emotions instead of greeting them with compassion, we stuff them right back down where they came from. And then they show up in a whole host of other ways, right? And we know why we do this. There's so much societal pressure to be quote unquote strong, to be quote unquote positive, to not be quote unquote dramatic, right? And what happens if we're not careful is that can lead us to dismissing valid emotions as something that like, oh, I need to fix this, right? Or I need to like ignore that, or I need to not be like that. No, it's not the case. There's a reason why these emotions are coming up. Whether you understand it or not, I don't really care. It doesn't really matter. But you have to acknowledge that they're there and be present with them and allow them to come up and release instead of shoving them back down and suppressing them. So where do we go from here, right? How do we start a healthier relationship with honoring your emotions? One, I think it's good to start with an emotional vocabulary, right? Let's expand the language that we have for emotions. Like the next time someone asks you, like, hey, how are you feeling, right? Your husband, you're making breakfast and he's like, hey, how are you feeling? Good. Like good is not a feeling. Good is not an emotion. Like, can we expand our vocabulary around emotions, right? I'm feeling jittery today. I'm feeling worried today. I'm feeling excited today, right? I'm feeling a lot of joy. I'm feeling really sad. I'm feeling really disappointed. I'm feeling really dismissed. I'm feeling invisible today. I'm feeling unappreciated. Like expand our language for emotions. And then we can, I think you guys could probably even Google a list of emotions or feeling words to identify what you're feeling. This is what I did when I really started learning this work. And it really helped me to validate my experience, first of all, because I'm like, oh, that's what I'm feeling. That's like an actual normal human emotion. That's what it is, right? It validated that experience for me. And just that actually made it more manageable. I think the second thing you guys can do is change your mindset around emotions. If you're noticing that an emotion comes up and you greet it with judgment, right? You want to dismiss it. I don't have time for that, whatever it is. See if you can shift that approach to greeting it with compassion and curiosity instead, right? So you feel a lot of anger coming up and you're so annoyed or frustrated about something that someone did. Instead of just being like, oh, I'm being a jerk, or I'm being unreasonable, or I'm being dramatic, or like, this is unnecessary, whatever it is that's coming up, stop the judgment and just get curious. Whoa, why is this bothering me so much, right? Okay, I'm feeling this anger coming through. Why, right? How can I be compassionate with myself in that anger? What does this anger want, right? Does this anger want to like throw something? Okay, I'm going to go upstairs and like slam my pillow to the ground 10 times, right? Does this anger want to like yell? Like I can just feel all this energy in my throat space and I just want to make noise. Okay, I'm going to go sit in my car. I'm going to go in the garage or like whatever it is. I'm going to scream into a pillow for a few minutes and see what happens. Just changing the approach to the emotion from judgment to curiosity, from judgment to compassion. Just a few minutes of being there with it can really help release and process the emotion. And then 2 more things I want to leave you with. 1, you guys know I can't get out of here without talking about your body. What are your somatic cues? What's going on in your body's physical sensations that are tied to the emotions? Because I promise you that resentment that you're feeling, that's probably stuck in your shoulders and you probably have a lot of shoulder and neck tension, right? That pit you have in your stomach might be fear. And that might be an emotion that you've been avoiding or suppressing. That lump in your throat or the scratchiness in your throat might be an indication that you are not being authentic in your expression. And there's things that you've got to say, whether to someone's face or in a journal or whatever it looks like, in a healthy way, to allow your body to release what it's been holding. So man, do a quick body scan, right? Notice where in my body does it feel really tense? Where in my body does it feel really hot? Where in my body does it feel really tight or uncomfortable? And start to notice as you bridge the gap between your mind and your body. And then finally, the last thing I want to leave you guys with is that you don't have to do any of this alone. If this feels overwhelming, if the thought of like feeling your anger or your sadness or your frustration or your pain or your disappointment or your embarrassment or your shame or whatever it is feels really, really scary, too much for you, you do not have to do this alone. You don't have to do it all at once. Find some support, right? Maybe it's a trusted friend. Maybe it's a really good therapist who understands the nervous system and your somatic body. Maybe it's a really good coach. I'm raising my hand here. If certain emotions feel too big for you or to handle alone, because sometimes just expressing an emotion out loud, that can be the catalyst to really start the healing process for you. All right. So if this has landed, if this has been helpful, why don't you go ahead and listen to the Heal Your Burnout private podcast that I created for you guys. There's a link in the show notes if you haven't listened to it yet. Because in the first episode, I go through the different stages of burnout. And I think that's helpful because you can just kind of cues you in on like, okay, how am I just tired, right? Or am I burned out? Like, how serious is this? But then I walk you through my 6-step framework to healing burnout. And one of those steps is emotional regulation, emotional hygiene, emotional expression, and release. So if you're interested, go check that out. It's absolutely free. It's 5 episodes. And then within that also, our group program on regulating your nervous system is starting again in January. Stay tuned. But a huge part of that, there's like 3 different phases. One whole phase is around emotions, and it's so stinking good. So I would love for you to join me there if you want to plan for it. You'll hear more about it coming through. All right, you guys, that's what I've got for you today. If this has been helpful in any way, if you've learned anything, if you like the podcast, go ahead, leave the show a 5-star rating and a short review. I'll talk to you guys soon. Love you so much. Be well.
If you love Mommy's Podcast, leave a review.
If you enjoyed this episode, it would be so awesome if you could take a moment to subscribe and rate the podcast. And if you have just a few more seconds to leave a quick review, they really help to get this podcast out to other moms like you. I read every last review, and trust me, when it's late at night or early in the morning before my kids get up and I'm working on bringing you all of this content, your reviews are what keep me going. Leaving a review is truly the best way you can thank me. And of course, DM me on Instagram. I love to hear from you. Thanks for listening to another episode. Head over to the show notes for this episode and all past episodes at michellegrosser.com, where you'll find free resources and more ways to connect with me. If you love the show, share it with a friend. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next time.